It's been 52 years since DR Congo were in a World Cup. What does this mean? Is this their best opportunity that we've seen? Clearly in half a century at this point, but against a Jamaica side that has some talent on their side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You're spot on. They are considered some of the giants of the African game. And of course, they've struggled to get to the big dance for half a century now, which is incredible to believe because they produce so much talent and they actually have a very good domestic league. Look, I think it is an enormous opportunity for them. If you look at the expansion to 48 teams, 9 automatic slots, plus the playoff place that they're taking. And of course, they've already eliminated huge giants like Cameroon, Nigeria in the African playoffs. And they're just one match away. Of course, Jamaica is no pushover. They are a talented team, but I would hazard to say that DRC would feel they are superior, they're more experienced, and that they've probably been through a more grueling qualification section. So if you look at their team, balanced, many of them, most of them, European-based, playing at high levels. So again, I would say that this is probably their most optimal opportunity for quite some time, and they're knocking on their door. They're almost there, and I think failure would be catastrophic, I think, for them, and they'd really be looking at another extremely grueling qualifying section for the next one. So this is it. This is the opportunity to get back to the World Cup for Congo.
Right. You mentioned the giants that they beat along the way. Even in the groups in African World Cup qualifying, it's still immensely difficult, even with the expanded field. But tell me a bit about the squad and some of the players that are here. We see Sadiki from Sunderland, Noah Sadiki, who's had a very good season. Yohan Wissler's in this team. Cedric Bakambu, Aaron Wan-Bissaka are all available to play for this team. So that would obviously be the foundation. Tell me how they kind of form together as a collective.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And again, they're in this period where they have a fantastic balance of these new up-and-coming players alongside, the long-standing players, leaders like Chancellor Mbemba, like you mentioned. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is going to be critical. I mean, for me, he's one of the best 1v1 defenders on the continent, and I think one of the best 1v1 defenders in Europe. Axel Tuanzebe was a fantastic addition for them. And they have Ndalel Mukau, for a center midfielder, who I think is a spectacular player, great passer, always composed under pressure, and I think he's the one who's going to be providing the ball for your likes of Noah Sadiki, Yohan Wissler. I think Cedric Bakambu is still a very useful player, as you're showing there, and Theo Bongonda, who I think is fantastically unpredictable in wide areas, has scored some important goals for Congo and created others. So they have a top team, I think, with some really, really talented players. To be frank, I haven't seen the best of Noah Sadiki in a Congolese jersey, but again, he's one of those youthful players who's dynamic and who's really, I think, a demonstration, a signal of what Congo's trying to build moving forward. So there's a number of players that can be both match winners and just solid, consistent contributors to this national team.
So DRC trying to join Morocco, Ghana, Senegal, Ivory Coast as African nations in this World Cup. Would this be the strongest African presence in a World Cup should a DRC join these other sides in qualifying for 2026?
There would absolutely be a compelling argument that it is. I mean, look, 9, 10 teams, increased representation also allows for a lot more tactical diversity, a lot more different approaches and cultures of the game. And of course, you have your traditional powers there. Your Morocco, Senegal, Egypt, Ivory Coast, Ghana, these are huge teams on the African continent. And they're joined by emerging or resurging talents like South Africa, and of course, Cabo Verde is there. Tunisia has won AFCON before. They're not the most spectacular football on the continent, but they are there. They're always there amongst the big boys. So I think if you look at it as well, African football has been improving. Not only the AFCON in Morocco, but in Ivory Coast. It showed the level of African football, not just on the football field, but the general organizational element, the structural and infrastructural element. And I think all of these things are elevating the African game. And of course, the perception of the African footballing ceiling has also been changed, I think, altered by Morocco's access to the semifinal for the first time for an African nation in history. So I think we're on the brink of something special. Personally, I expect a few African teams to make it to the second round, and hopefully 1 or 2 in the quarterfinals. And again, it's no longer improbable for an African team to make it to the semifinals. So for me, yes, I think this is our strongest ever opportunity and showing in the World Cup, and I can't wait. I'm excited.
In the end, in this playoff, though, between DR Congo and Jamaica from the Estadio Akron in Guadalajara, do DR Congo get it done? Or do we see them in the World Cup? Are they the 10th African side in?
DR Congo is going to get the job done. They've already demonstrated they can beat with the best of the African continent. And while I like many of the Jamaican players and actually wish that they could be there as well, because I'm a huge fan of Jamaica, the culture, the country, the people, I just think that they're going to be overpowered technically, tactically, and physically by the Democratic Republic of Congolese. And that's going to be it.
He is our African football correspondent, Mizo Zamane, breaking down all things DRC, just one win away from arriving at the World Cup this summer. Mizo, thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you much for having me, gents.
Let's shift the conversation. You heard his opinions, obviously, on DR Congo. Being the favorite, they are the betting favorites in this game against Jamaica. But let's argue from the other side. How important is this for Jamaica? Being this is an expanded World Cup in 3 countries that are in their federation, obviously in CONCACAF. How big of a miss would it be if they're not able to get this across the line? They didn't have U.S., Canada, or Mexico in this qualifying process. They still couldn't make it directly in, have to go to a playoff. So what would it mean if they missed this tournament?
It's not even necessarily about sort of what that opportunity is, although here you see in that group, in a group with Trinidad and Tobago, Bermuda, and Curacao, who are the ones who qualify. And actually, it's kind of interesting that those are the 2 that are there at the top, because Curacao had gone on this project of trying to bring in players with Dutch ancestry to come over and play for Curacao. Jamaica have done the same largely with English players. And if you look at the players that Jamaica have had available to them, I think they're the 4th best squad in CONCACAF.
Right.
And you could maybe even argue they could be pushing in towards that top 3. But again, that's in theory. That project has not come together. They went and recruited the likes of Leon Bailey and Mikel Antonio, and it's some really good players who are playing in England that qualified for Jamaica that were not going to play for the English national team. And yet, that did not blend well. The English players coming in with the players that were based in Jamaica and that had been playing for the national team for the years prior. So I think in some ways, them qualifying for this tournament would be papering over cracks. It didn't work in qualifying. Steve McLaren did not do a very good job. He left after November. They're currently under the intermanagement of Rudolph Speed. I just don't see this nation as having come together in football, which is really sad considering what the potential is. Like I said, I think they have the potential to be the 4th best team in this region and causing problems at World Cups. That has not come together. And so I agree with Mbizo. I do think that DR Congo are favorites here, significant favorites here as a team that have actually coalesced rather than Jamaica, who I think are still a collection of individuals.
It's a fair point, and it's not going to be any easier moving on in that qualifying process again with Mexico and Canada back in for Jamaica. So this is a huge chance, but Congo clearly the favorites. We remind you on Tuesday, it's that playoff final for a spot in the World Cup. Democratic Republic of Congo taking on Jamaica.